This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of Party Loaded, your source for everything new in the world of video games. This is episode insert number of the Party Loaded podcast. I'm joined tonight by Introduce Others, and I am your name here. So we're going to kick things off tonight. How was that, guys? Did I do a good Luke?
It was perfect.
That was spot on, Luke. Yeah.
Wait,
That was good? Yeah.
you're
yeah.
not Luke?
No,
well,
what's going on?
Luke gave me a bit of a written guide as to how to introduce the podcast, and I'm pretty sure I read it word for word, including these funny things in brackets. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
I think robot voice. You were right on the
Robot
money.
voice, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Can
did it.
eat
Yeah.
more.
Can eat more. Yeah, so obviously, we one of these things is not like the others tonight for anyone playing at home. We're missing our fearless leader, Mr. Luke Retallick. So Luke, I believe, is away on a little family holiday. So he'll be away this week, but he'll be back with us next week. And as usual, Luke will be doing all the hard work of editing the podcast. So here's a little clap for Luke. Yay!
So
Thank you for doing all the work.
Instead of a fearless leader, are you a fearful leader? Are you filled with fear?
Yes, that's right. I instill fear in others. That's
Fearsome
true.
leader.
yeah,
Fearsome
that's
leader.
right. Fearsome. Although it's more like a general unease and disgust. I think that
Yeah.
generally
Yeah.
trickles downward. Yeah, trickling is the key word. I think.
Trickle.
Just all sorts of things trickle from you, Adrian.
That's right. Yes, fear being one of them.
It's like, damn.
Yeah. So, damn trickling. Exactly. Damn trickling.
Adrian the
This is-
trickle.
Hopefully, because Luke is away, we also get to name the podcast, and damp trickling is
Damn
already
trickling.
at the top of the list. I
Welcome to the
think.
Damn
Yeah,
Trickling podcast.
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah,
I think
episode one.
The trickler
Episode
is your
one.
Batman villain name.
I am the trickler. My civilian name is like Ted Rickler or something.
Yes,
Ted
it's
Rickler,
exactly
the
right.
Trickler.
Yeah, I am Ted Rickler. You'll never catch me. I slide away in a pool of ooze
Trickled buses.
backwards because that's I have to go back the way I came because I can't trickle forward.
Ah.
Can't Luke
Exactly.
be away every week? This is
I
great.
know, isn't this? Yeah, I feel like. I mean, Christian made a good point earlier on that we kind of feel like kids in a classroom and the teacher hasn't rocked up.
Yeah.
So, you know what they say: when the cat's away, when in Rome, that's
Mikasa
That's how they say
Sukasa.
Mikasa Sukasa. Exactly.
When the moon hits your eye.
Yeah. So it's apparently my responsibility to move us along as the interim Luke. So we might get into what we've been doing during the week. So Christian, what have you been playing? What have you been up to this week?
Yeah, well, it's actually going to
Well, it's
be
2
more
weeks,
than a
isn't
week
it?
for me. It's like
That's right.
3 weeks because I wasn't here last week, and then the week before that was PAX. So
That's right.
I actually have a lot of pent up stuff to talk about, but I won't talk about everything I've been playing. I'll just hit a few things.
Just let it loose. Just spray it all over us. Just
Shake it out. So first up, I want to talk about Runeterra, Legends of Runeterra. I think you guys talked about that last
You're
last
saying
week of it.
you're pronouncing it wrong, Christian.
Legends of Hamtaro.
Everything.
That's right. The game is called Legends of Hamtaro.
That's exactly
so
what it is.
That's exactly
So-
what it's called.
Did you guys get into the alpha at all, or try to get into the alpha, or
No.
No, it didn't bother. No.
No, so I did manage to get in, only for a couple of days, because in total it was only actually like playable for like 5 days, and I got in 2 days before it ended. So just messing around a little bit, getting to know the mechanics and the class systems and that sort of thing. Obviously, as a huge Hearthstone player, I have a lot of opinions on like TCG like card game design and what's better and what's worse than Hearthstone. And I've played a little bit of Magic before. And so I reckon that Runeterra is it's more technically complicated than Hearthstone in a really good way. It has more interaction. So the key thing I wanted to mention is that unlike Hearthstone, where you can, during your opponent's turn in Hearthstone, you can't interact at all. You're completely passive. It's more like chess, where one person does something, the other person has their turn back and forth. In Runeterra, you can like interrupt your opponent's actions, more similar to Magic the Gathering, where you have like instant spells you can cast and you have like abilities you can activate during your opponent's like phases. And like with blocking, the minion combat in the game is closer to Magic the Gathering, where the defender chooses which of their minions will block which attacking minions. Unlike in Hearthstone, where that's chosen by the attacker. So there's a lot more interaction in Legends of Runeterra, and I think that's really good. And I think that interests me a lot because as much as I love Hearthstone, it's quite simplistic.
Yeah. Do you think it creates a much more complicated game than Hearthstone?
I don't. I wouldn't say much more complicated. It is undeniably more complicated, but compared to something like Artifact, so like Artifact was way too complicated because in Artifact they were trying to like recreate the MOBA thing, and they had 3 different lanes that you had to control, and your cards could kind of move between the different lanes, and that was too complicated. Runeterra is Hearthstone with a little bit more. And obviously there's some more differences than I've described, but basically it's like Hearthstone with a little bit more.
How does it hold up visually? Because obviously the Hearthstone / WoW aesthetic appeals very broadly to people.
Yeah.
Does the Runeterra aesthetic have that same kind of broad appeal, do you think?
Look, I don't think it does. It's not as like colorful and poppy. Like the League of Legends art is like somewhat like exaggerated and kind of anime-ish, but I don't like how they've chosen to approach the actual card artwork in Runeterra. So in Hearthstone, each card has a very central, prominent, clear figure in it, and so it's immediately identifiable what a card is, and there's a very colorful, bright picture. Whereas in Runeterra, the art is more like a wallpaper, where there can be lots of figures in the art,
like Magic.
It can be like Magic. It can be zoomed further out, and in fact, you can actually right click and get like a full screen view of every card art in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a nice little feature, but it means that when you're playing the game, the art kind of blends into itself, and there's a lot of shadows in the art. There's a lot of detail, and it doesn't grab your attention as much.
I think that's actually one of the things that made Hearthstone so good was the fact that every card had a lot of personality to it.
Definitely.
Whereas Magic, it's like, I put down a thing that looks like hills.
Yes.
I play hills. Are there animations in Runeterra as well?
Yeah, there are animations. Nothing.
Yeah, okay.
There are some really elaborate animations because you have champions like you do in League of Legends. I guess they'd be similar to like planeswalkers in Magic the Gathering. So they're like you only have a couple of them in the deck, and they all have like a level up condition where once you've fulfilled a certain task, the champion will level up, and when they do, there's like a full screen animation that like interrupts the game, and like there's a very elaborate animation for the champions leveling up. So they've put some effort in. But it is like alpha, like they're only going to have like a beta like March next year, so it's very, very early, so lots could change, but I don't think the art's going to change because I know that it is all bespoke like art that they've created for the game. They've said that they haven't recycled any art assets, so they've very intentionally chosen to take this approach, and it's not what speaks to me, but yeah.
Is there any hint of like a competitive scene for the game? Like I know it's early stages, but like with the massive changes to Hearthstone, where they you might have to fill in the blanks for me, but where they no longer made competitive ranking contribute toward local tournaments? Was it something like that?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you think there'll be an exodus of Hearthstone players towards other card games like Hamtaro?
Definitely, yes. Absolutely. I being someone who's like deep in the Hearthstone scene. I have known for a long time that pretty much every Hearthstone pro is on the hunt for a replacement game, and they have been for like at least a year. And there's been a couple of candidates that have popped up. Like Artifact came out, and there was a small exodus away from Hearthstone into Artifact, but then that game failed miserably. And some people came crawling back to Hearthstone, and some people stubbornly refused to. And then the next one was like the auto chess games, like TFT, Teamfight Tactics, and that did pull. Teamfight Tactics has persisted a lot longer than Artifact did. It is still a popular game, and it did take a chunk out of the Hearthstone pro scene. But then the remaining players, I think, have their eye on Runeterra, and if Runeterra shakes out to be competitively viable, then it'll definitely, take away the last vestiges of the true Hearthstone pros.
Interesting. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I mean, everyone, I think, always has high hopes when a new card game comes out. It's I think, often the case when there's clearly one game dominating all the others. So it's like when a new MMO comes out, it's inevitably compared to World of Warcraft. Yeah. I wonder if, it has the staying power to at least stick around in the face of Hearthstone. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, right, like Hearthstone isn't World of Warcraft. I don't think Hearthstone has the staying power to overpower every other card game that comes around.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
In much the same way that like Overwatch is totally going to get replaced by another character-based first-person shooter thing. Like, it just hasn't been consistent enough in the way that WoW's been consistent.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
One thing Hearthstone's had going for it is it's really good mobile app.
Yeah.
And a lot of other PC-based card games don't have good apps or don't have a mobile version at all. Like Artifact never had a mobile version. But I know Runeterra, they've said that on like official release, it will be mobile day one as well. So that'll help it out.
Yeah, that'd be a big deal.
Cool. I also played a bit of Astro Bot Rescue Mission. Yeah. So this came out last year. It's a PSVR game, and it's a legit 3D platformer. Like it's a full-fledged 3D kind of Mario-esque game, and it's blown me away by how deep the game is, as far as like it's got a lot of content in it.
Yeah, it's not just a proof of concept.
Yeah, and I should have known that because this game in itself was developed from a proof of concept. So when the PSVR launched, there was a demo disc, and the demo disc had one little stage of this Astro Bot Rescue Mission, and then because that was so warmly received, they developed this full game off the back of it.
I remember playing that little Astrobot game. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I'm glad that there's someone else here who's played it then. So do you remember how it feels kind of like a diorama where, because the world is like fixed in place around you, and you're kind of just like floating above the world, and then as you control the little robot and he runs around, there's a real sense of like detachment. I find where in a good way, where normally with Mario, like in Mario 64 or Mario Galaxy, when you're running around, you feel like even though you're in third person camera, you're controlling Mario and you're basically just playing Mario from the third person.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, it's like you're another entity and you're watching and you're moving him around, but he has his own little personality and little agency, and it's really cute. Where like as you run him like in front of you, he'll like look over at you and like wave at you. And like sometimes, even if he's like off in the distance doing something, he'll like just like look back and like check that you're still like watching him, or like look for like validation in some of the things he does.
That's cute.
It's really cute. Yeah.
It's adorable.
And it's all about finding the other little robots that are hidden in these worlds. So you're always like peeking around corners and like breaking down like hidden doors and like looking in every nook and cranny and trying to find these little cute little robots.
Yeah, right.
And it's really good.
Yeah, I remember playing the sort of original proof of concept game, and immediately being motion sick by the fact that you're kind of pulled along as if you're on a dolly, kind of as you control the little robot, and then you do get that feeling of detachment because you've got purely because it's VR and you've got that sense of motion. I remember it taking a bit of getting used to, but you adjust pretty quickly, and then it is really fun. I remember, and I love that idea of being able to physically look around the environment to find little hidden robots. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I can't remember how it was in the concept game, because in this one, the camera only moves like when you've kind of cleared a certain area. Like you're given like one sort of setup, and then you move the little dude around exploring this little setup. And then once you finish that, then you kind of move on to the next area. But while you're playing the game, most of the time the camera's actually it doesn't move at all. So maybe they tweaked that.
No, that was different. Yeah, because I remember it was one of two things. It was either as the robot moved that you followed it automatically, you were like pulled along, or you moved the camera manually, and it was like a free roaming camera. But either way, you definitely moved the camera around, which made it a bit nauseating.
Okay, yeah. Now it's only like kind of moving between sections that you actually get that sense. So
yeah, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And I'll quickly hit another thing I played. I want to just bat these all out. I played. Have you guys heard of Elite Beat Agents?
Yes.
I thought you might have, Matt, because I know you went to a talk by the developer of OS.
Yep. And also, like, one of my friends is a massive fan of Elite Beat Agents, so
yeah. I'd never played it before. This is a original to Nintendo DS game.
I'm thinking of something else. Sorry, go ahead.
This is a Nintendo DS game from, I think, 2009. 2008, something like that. And it is, so I actually bought off eBay like a legit copy of it for my DS Lite. And it's a rhythm game. It's made by like a Japanese studio, and it's like super quirky and like weird, where there are these three elite beat agents, and they're kind of like Blues Brothers meets Village People in a way, or like Men in Black. They're like Blues Brothers, Men in Black, Village People, and they're part of this secret team. And like when somebody out in society needs help with something, like something mundane, then they're like dispatched by their secret like Men in Black team to go and like cheer the person on, just like dance and sing a song and cheer them on. So there's these funny little scenarios where the top screen of the DS plays out like a little comic of what's happening, and then the bottom screen is the rhythm game. So like the first one is like a teenage girl who is babysitting, and then she's invited over this like cute boy from her school, and she wants to like tell the boy that she likes him, but then the children that she's looking after keep getting into like trouble, and then she has to like
put them down
basically. Yeah, just like put them to bed or give them food or something, so that she can like get back to hanging out with this boy.
Out.
Yeah. And then like there's another one where there's like a taxi driver, and then a woman gets in the taxi and she's pregnant and giving birth, and she needs to go to the hospital. So then so the taxi driver needs to like speed and like zigzag through these streets, and you're just there like cheering him on, saying like, you can do it. And it's really fun. It's really it's super quirky, super Japanese.
Is it kind of WarioWare-ish?
It is a bit WarioWare-ish, yeah. The motion graphics are kind of WarioWare-ish, where like the way that the actual stories play out, it looks a bit like WarioWare. The music's all licensed music, which is interesting, where it's like it's actual songs. So there's like music from the mid 2000s, like Avril Lavigne and like weird stuff like that.
God, Avril Lavigne.
Yeah. But yeah, Elite Beat Agents is pretty fun. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
Anything else on your hiatus list?
That's all I'll talk about for now. I did play another game, but I think you played that too, Adrian. So I'll let you dig into that, and then I'll offer my thoughts as well.
That's a good segue. So we'll move on to sort of what I played over the last week. So aside from the game that shall not be named, I did also play a game called Indivisible. So this is one of those things where it's like when you back something on Kickstarter or Indiegogo and then you forget about it, and then you get an email like 23 years later saying, hey, we finally finished making that thing that you were interested in ages ago and don't care about now. Here, play it, it's ready. And that's pretty much what happened with Indivisible. So I remember backing it a while ago, and immediately it was the art style that sort of grabbed my attention. So it's made by the same group that made Skullgirls, which...
Lab Zero.
Lab Zero, yeah. So I did bring it up on my phone because I knew I'd forget the name, and then I forgot it anyway. So much for being prepared. Lab Zero Games. So the creators behind Skullgirls, who have a sort of a Western take on kind of anime aesthetics. I guess they are anime aesthetics, but I don't know. They've got a bit of a comic booky kind of vibe to them, but they're more sort of anime skewed. What sort of really attracted me is that gameplay aside, the art style is really quite unique because the game is set in sort of a mishmash of South Asian, Southeast Asian cultures. So all the characters wear sort of Indonesian-styled kind of garb. A lot of the enemies are sort of like multi-armed Deva-looking bad guys, things that you might expect to see in sort of Balinese, Thai, Filipino, Vietnamese kind of culture. And that was struck me as quite unique at the time, and like I hadn't seen anything else like that, so decided to back it. Gameplay wise, it's similar in a way to an old game on the PS1 that I actually did have called Legend of Valkyrie, and it's basically an RPG with an overworld and sort of
it's Metroidvania-y.
Yeah, it's got a Metroidvania style overworld, and the combat is sort of RPG styled where you can see the enemies on the overworld, and when you bump into them, it triggers a combat. And the combat, instead of being like a turn-based classic JRPG style combat, instead you have 4 characters in your party at any given time, and each of those characters is mapped to one of the PlayStation buttons. I played it on my computer using a PS4 controller. I think, Christian, you played it on the PS4, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, so basically we had the same experience. But each of the 4 characters in your party, one of them is mapped to either the triangle, the circle, the square, or the X button. And then basically, every time you tap one of those buttons, your character runs up and attacks. So it ends up feeling, funnily enough, from the creators of Skullgirls, a bit like a fighting game, where each of the characters will run in and attack. And then if you've pressed the other button roughly at the same time, the next one will run in and chain the attack together to make a combo. And then as you play through the game, the number of attacks you can do increases. The only way it kind of expands beyond that really is that you can change the input by holding up or down when you press that character's button, and they will do a different move. So in the same way in a fighting game where you hit someone into the air, you can then string a combo together and juggle them. You can do that in this game as well. So you might, hit triangle and the first character will rush in and uppercut the enemy. Then the next one will rush in and jump in the air and attack. It ends up being quite a simple battle system. And really, in the end, that ends up being one of the major downfalls of the game, in my opinion. But yeah, Christian, what did you think playing Indivisible? I mean, that's a very rough and ready kind of explanation, but I'll get to my criticisms. But tell us what you thought.
Well, I think that like you, I love the art style, and I really like the team. I like the guys at Lab Zero. I think they do really good stuff with Skullgirls, and I was really excited to see this game come out. I do think that it is it's kind of empty feeling. I think that you can probably echo that sentiment where the overworld, there's not a lot to do in it. It's pretty much just traversing from left to right or right to left with some platforming. You get some different like movement abilities, but there's never really anything interesting to explore or discover. Like there's one overworld collectible, which are like your kind of upgrade materials, but it's just one like type of thing. There's no, from what I saw, like decent like hidden bosses or like discoverable abilities, or I don't know, like there's just not a lot to do in the overworld.
I mean, they kind of tried to create this game that had a Metroidvania style sort of overworld, and then had like RPG elements of combat. and neither of them are particularly strong.
Yeah.
And I think the overworld really suffers from. I remember ages ago I talked about Owlboy on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
And I remember saying at the time that Owlboy, when you play Owlboy, you can feel that it's a crowd-funded game.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Skullgirls, where you can feel that it's crowd-funded, almost to the point where you can see like the strings sort of in the background. You can kind of see how the game has been constructed, in the sense that like every area that you visit in the game, you can tell is like a copy-pasted sort of environment where, although the background art is beautiful and everything is sort of hand-produced, it's then replicated ad nauseum.
Yeah.
So in their effort to make everything seem really individual and unique, because the layout is so expansive, it ends up being totally kind of boring.
Yeah.
And sort of I think there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's probably 6, 7, 8 areas that you visit in the game, and each of these areas is sort of Metroidvania-esque. But Christian's right in that there's almost zero incentive to explore, because anytime you do, for example, get a new ability that lets you reach that ledge up there, there's nothing there. There's in some cases there's literally nothing in that room.
Yeah.
You'll spend time exploring every area of the map, and it's just empty. Or the only upgrade is, like Christian mentioned, there's these red gems that you collect that end up being your upgrade material. You get the red gems, and that's it. But you need huge amounts of those red gems to make any kind of progress. So it's just a bit unusual and like you say, very empty feeling.
I have a change that I wish they'd made, which I think would have helped the overworld exploration somewhat, which is I didn't actually know until I completed the game that every character in your party has a personal quest.
Oh.
You can get about 22 different characters, and each of them has a unique quest. But you have to, in the game, you have like a hub that you can travel to any time. It's like an inner world, and all of the party members kind of live in your inner world, and you can just kind of go there and talk to them. And that's how you trigger their quests. And then they do create new interactions in the overworld. So a lot of those empty rooms that you go into, there's actually a boss there, or there's actually some monster there or something to do during one of your party members' quests.
Right. But, well, that's a massive failing then, because I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea. I completed the game, that I looked up. I wanted to get the platinum trophy because I noticed that I'd already gotten like 80% of the trophies, and one of the trophies was complete one personal quest. I was like, what? There's personal quests in this game? So I think they either need to signpost that a lot more clearly so that you know exactly when each of your party members' quests are available, or make it so going to those areas triggers the quest. So if you walk into the empty room, then that character should pop up and go, hey, this is this special place or whatever, and it should just do it for you. And
this is a room where I shamed myself in front of my family.
Yeah. So I think that was a big mistake to not make that clear enough.
Yeah. And that sentiment is echoed through the whole game, where it's clear that once you start playing it, you have no idea what to do the majority of the time. And that never really changes. Yeah,
it's very hands off with tutorials. There's very basic tutorials. Each time you get a new character, it'll tell you like a very basic thing about them, like what their super does. But then it doesn't tell you anything about like the range of other attacks they've got, or like it's just very threadbare.
For an RPG, you just expect more sort of explanation and more. You want to be able to understand the system so you can master it, but you never feel like you end up mastering it. And in the end, what I ended up doing was just literally mashing my palm on all 4 buttons at once, every single combat.
Me too.
And that literally got me through the entire game.
As much as
every single boss, everything.
I love the animations. I love the variety of attacks you can do, but it doesn't end up mattering at all. After the first kind of 2 hours of the game, maybe, you don't need to really think about what you're doing in the combat. I feel like this is just complete speculation, but I feel like they were almost scared to make your decisions in the combat matter too much, because then they thought it would be too complicated for people, or that people who don't play fighting games or aren't interested in learning the depth of the combat would be put off by it. So instead they didn't make it matter. So things like juggling enemies, it doesn't really matter. Or like
No, it doesn't.
stringing combos together, you do get a damage bonus, but you never really feel like it matters. Like you could easily get by without stringing combos together. And even like choosing like up or down or neutral, sure, this character does, 10% more damage if you use their up attack, but it doesn't really make much difference. And if you were sort of forced through challenge to learn that, then I think I would have found that rewarding, but I can understand that other people might have been put off by that, maybe.
Yeah, there's huge flaws in the game. The last thing I sort of wanted to touch on is I can't think of a game where I've had to do more backtracking than in Indivisible, to the point where sort of there are 3 main locations where the majority of the game takes place. They're huge Metroidvania-style maps, and there is literally no way to get from one point on the map to the other without just running it on foot. You can teleport from the main hub to one of those locations, but once you're there, there's no way to get from one end of the map to the other. And the game will make you run from one end of the map to the other for no reason other than to pad out the content of the game. So it commits a cardinal sin in that sense, where
Definitely.
it makes you complete the story in each of these 3 locations, then go off and trigger an event, then go back to those locations for no other reason than to just go back there, run through the entire map again, and have one encounter at the end for all 3 locations. So it's terrible. It's one of the worst things about the game. And
Definitely.
yeah, all I will say is that when I think about the game, if it wasn't for the strength of the art direction, it would be a horrible, terrible game, I think.
Yeah.
I think it would be really bad.
Unfortunately, that's quite true.
Yeah, unfortunately. If it wasn't for the strength, the real strength of its character design and its art direction, yeah, it would suck.
I did enjoy my time with the game overall, like because of the strength of the art and the music, and this game's got a nice sense of humor too. I like
It
a lot
does.
of the party
The writing's
members.
good.
The writing's really good.
Yeah.
And there was enough there that speaks to what I like, that it did make it overall a positive experience.
Yeah.
But it's on that, riding the line.
Yeah, and it's funny because I fall just on the other side of it, where there just wasn't enough to make it really enjoyable for me. It was a chore getting through it.
Maybe Indivisible 2.
Maybe. Yeah.
See, I actually wanted to ask or say something, but I think I'm actually going to leave it for when we get to our main topic, and I'm using finger quotes that nobody can see.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's actually
fascinating.
I think what you said, Adrian, about the fact that it felt like a crowdfunded game is really fucking interesting to me.
All right, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I want to dig into that.
Yeah, I'm happy to elaborate because I know what I mean in my mind.
Oh,
but it might sound different.
Put it this way, you're exactly right.
Yeah, okay.
I entirely agree with you. I haven't played it, but I can totally see where you're coming from. So yes, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. What you been playing, Matt?
Yeah, what you been up to, Matty?
I played something really fucking weird. Have either of you guys have heard of this game called Manifold Garden?
No, I have not.
I played a game on the PC when I was young called Ever-Growing Garden.
No, not the same.
I don't know. No, not that one? Oh, okay.
You may have heard of a game from a while ago called Antichamber, maybe?
Yes, I played Antichamber.
Yes.
No.
So Manifold Garden is basically Antichamber.
Okay.
It's like a more modern
Crazy
version.
Portal.
It's Crazy Portal. It is Crazy Portal. So it's all about solving puzzles in this really awesome space. And I'm gonna explain the basic mechanics first before I get to the complex ones, because the game is fucking difficult to describe. So it's all in these Escher kind of type spaces where it's an impossible space, really.
Non-Euclidean, as the kids say.
Yeah, non-Euclidean. Thank you.
Isn't that custard you can walk on? Isn't that non-Euclidean?
That's non-Newtonian.
Yeah, it's all the same.
But basically, it's all about taking these boxes that are kind of growing off of these trees and then relocating them to another position to either grow another tree or whatever. But the boxes will only move if gravity is in a certain direction. So, you can basically walk up walls and floors. There is no down in this game. Everything is a surface that you can walk on. And so a certain surface might be like the green surface, which activates the green trees, which means you can pluck the boxes off of green trees and move those boxes around.
Sounds like a fever dream.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put it this way. Like, I finished the game over the weekend and immediately uninstalled it. Not because I disliked the game, but because I felt my brain hurty.
Brainy go hurt.
So that's the simple stuff, right? Like the fact that you can change gravity, you can move around these boxes and everything like that. There's not really a spoken or written narrative in the game. You kind of just pick up on what the narrative is from the stuff that you're doing. But where it gets really fucking weird is that unlike Antechamber, Manifold Garden is infinite in every direction. Up, down, left, and right. So the level that you're currently in, you can see a copy of off to the left and off to the right and above you and below you. And so a lot of the puzzles will be like, okay, well, I'm currently holding this box. It only wants to move across what is currently the red surface, the ground for me. But I need to get it up to the position above me. So I'm going to drop down from my current location to fall into the next version of the level and land on the platform above.
This
It's like Asteroid.
Yes.
or that Llamatron. Anyone play Llamatron?
I've not heard of Llamatron.
Don't worry about it. It's an old game from the 80s.
You can't just make up games, Christian. have you played Snake War?
Have you
Maybe.
Have
it
you
sounds
played
like a real game.
Have you played Gremlin
quite
Gremlins?
Gremlin.
Our favorite game.
What about
Gremlin
Legend of Hamtaro? Like, how have you not played these things?
See, these at least are all real games.
Yeah, right. So yeah, like it's really freaking complex, and I would actually suggest, like, if you're listening or you're interested in like the way this game sounds, go look up a video of it because it will sell it way better than any sort of description anybody will ever be able to give you for it because it is so fucking weird.
I'm definitely interested. The creative puzzle design from Antechamber it automatically gives me faith that this must be brilliantly crafted.
It takes Antechamber's awesome game and level design and turns it up to 9. Like, this game is insane, and it is so super pretty. Like, there's some areas where like it's still an infinite space, but it doesn't repeat up, down, left, and right. It might just repeat in a single direction, and so like you can just keep on like just infinite stairs that lead up or down, right? And you can just keep on hopping down them to try and find like where the hell you're supposed to go. But when you're in that space and like it just disappears down into mist and you can see like thousands of stairs down, but they just keep going. And it's like, holy crap, this feels huge and amazing and I love it. It's just
like when you hold up a mirror to another mirror and you see into oblivion.
It's infinite regression. It does sound. It sounds like you're describing like a eldritch plane of existence.
It does kind of feel like that. Yeah,
it's really weird.
It is.
I want to go
cool.
to there.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out.
But yeah, definitely.
I may have missed it in your description, Matt. But is it first person 3D or is it like a 2D?
First person 3D. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Very
so
very
even trippier.
Cool. I highly recommend it. I had a ton of fun with it.
Do you know, is it on consoles or just PC?
I played it on PC. I'm not sure about consoles.
Okay.
Imagine it in VR.
Oh god. You would get okay.
It'd be crazy.
I actually got physically ill when I was playing it, not because of motion sickness, but because the space really does weird you out. Because it is impossible, and you're trying to work out like. So put it this way: there's one puzzle in the game at one point where I kept on trying to drop down onto the platform below me, which was above me from where I was standing, but once I kept on dropping down onto it and there was stuff in the way, so I couldn't drop onto it correctly. And I spent like 15 minutes scratching my head before realizing, wait, I can rotate the world and then fall down onto that platform, but from the side from where I'm currently standing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly. And so like it's a lot of the time you feel like, did I just solve the puzzle the correct way, or did I just like fucking stumble into this? But it is
that's a nice feeling though.
It is a really good feeling, and it does feel just like I love it. Impossible Spaces and Antechamber was really cool for that, but this is just like such a different level that it's really cool. I found some little secrets in there that I'm actually sort of tempted to reinstall the game to go back and solve, but fuck that, no.
I love it. I love it when a game makes you feel like you've created your own solution to a problem instead of just discovering the intended solution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, was I supposed to do that? Oh, well,
Yeah.
it worked.
And the game is riddled with secrets, and there was a couple of occasions where I'm like, oh geez, did I just stumble into this like secret space? Like it felt like I had like slipped behind the scenes into a hallway that I wasn't supposed to be in.
I love that. I love
Adrian.
that.
I know
love
you
that feeling.
like in Portal 1.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah.
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 One of my favorite gaming moments of all time.
But like the
Is
game
when you-
intends you to
in
go
that.
there. Like exploration is key in this thing, and then there's hidden little spaces where it is very clear you're not supposed to have found them, but there is a reward for doing something with them, and I couldn't figure the fuck out how I was supposed to get through those areas. So yeah, like
Very
fucking awesome. Definitely go play it if you get the chance.
Mm.
Yeah, you've sold it really well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something I think we'd enjoy. I love the idea of hooking it up to VR and like giving it to an old person.
Oh god, no! I would be puking all over the
perfect
goddamn
crime.
floor.
The perfect crime. You can't like
Solve
or
that
give it
one,
to a young.
CSI.
You give it to a young person and come back and they're all old and have like a long white beard. I've been trapped in here forever.
I've seen shit.
Like Jumanji.
What
year is it?
What year is it? You boy, what you? Yeah. What's Christmas Day, sir? Sorry, I'm mashing I'm mashing two classic literature together, two pieces of classic literature together. Jumanji and
Christmas Carol.
I was going to say Winter's Tale. That's not what it's called. A Winter's Tale.
That's the non-denominational version.
That's right.
The secular version.
That's right, the knockoff version.
Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, well, it sounds like we've all had a really good week in gaming.
Uh-huh.
So, in classic naughty boy nature, that's our new moniker, by the way. We're the Naughty Boys.
Sweet.
Because, sorry?
I said sweet. I'm totally down for
Sweet.
this.
Because Grandmaster Luke is away doing whatever it is he does when he's not podcasting. Who knows? Probably something terrible.
Probably.
And devious.
And awful.
We decided to cancel the news.
The
That's
news
it,
is
everyone.
cancelled.
No news.
No news anywhere
No
in the world.
news.
We've cancelled all news.
No news.
What's that
is
song
good
that we
news.
play? It's time for no news.
What?
You know, like the song that plays with the news thing. You sung it.
What?
The little bit.
The jingle.
But now it
The
the
barbershop
jingle
thing.
Yeah, but now
Right,
it's no
yeah.
news.
Now it's time to hear no
No
news. the end.
news.
That's it. Yep. Excellent. I'll
You can
tell
all
my
go home.
content to re-record the intro just in case we never have
Yep.
news again. So we decided instead of going with the classic news topic, mainly because there was not a lot of news, and we just decided to be naughty boys and mess with the formula because Luke's not here. We can do whatever we want.
We're
so we
breaking
decided
new ground.
we're gonna waka 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 freestyle. I'm sorry I did that. I
That's
immediately
fine.
regretted it. I regret
Don't edit it out,
Everything.
Luke. Leave
No.
it. Let him feel his shame.
my life. No. So instead of news, we're just going to freestyle, and we just decided that we'd all bring along a few topics. We'd bring it up. We'd have a bit of a back and forth, bit of a discussion, and you guys at home can join in the discussion. We won't hear you, and we won't care, but you can do it. You can just
You look crazy, but
you'll look insane, like a man trapped in a non-Newtonian VR world, where custard is solid, and yeah, you can do it in the car. You can listen in the car. You can do it at work. You can do it on your own in your room. Think of the possibilities.
and you can do it too, Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew,
Listening at
Jesus
home.
Christ. Yeah, Andrew.
There's one guy named Andrew that listens, and he's
He's freaking out
He's
right
gonna
now.
freak out.
What
Yeah,
the
he
fuck?
doesn't know, but we know who he is.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'm watching him right
no,
now.
I picked a random name.
Yeah. Okay.
If I wanted to say an actual listener, I'd say Nick.
Yeah, Nick.
You can tweet me some opinion about something, Nick. Go ahead, do it. I dare you.
Tell him we double dare you. We double dare you to tweet us. Look at us. We're so naughty. We're such naughty boys.
But yeah, so I guess we should talk about games instead of just talking about being naughty boys.
We should.
I don't know. I could
Why
talk
not
about
both?
being a naughty boy for the next half hour.
So the way I imagined this in my head is I pictured us like sitting around a cozy campfire and just telling stories and asking questions. And we've all brought some kindling to the conversation, and we're gonna put our kindling, into the fire and see if it takes light or not. So
yeah.
Matt, you had something you wanted to talk about from before. What were you going to bring up?
So the Indivisible thing, and Adrian, what you had said about the fact that it felt like a crowdfunded game, and I can coming at this from I'm going to be nerdy game developer for a second. I feel like the reason for that is that when it comes to crowdfunded video games, they never get the budget that they need because they never set the budget to a realistic level. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've not played Indivisible, but I've seen it because I followed it for a little bit. And the reason I didn't personally back it was because I was like, this is a fighting game that they've gone and put, it's an RPG in a fighting game engine is basically what they've gone and done. Right. And that makes total sense for a game developer because, for them, they've already done the fighting game thing. Let's use that engine again, but let's go with a game that's larger in scope and aiming a bit higher, doing something different. But the problem with that is that to make that game would be substantially more expensive than the fighting games that they were already so good at. And it's a totally different genre. And basically I find with a lot of those Kickstarted games and crowdfunded games is that they feel exactly like that, where it's like, okay, my sense of suspension of disbelief is just completely thrown out because I can see behind the curtain. I can see where they've trimmed things out. The empty room thing is a really good example because as a game dev, for me, I'm sitting here cringing. Why didn't they just lock out those rooms when you didn't have the quest? Or why didn't they put something in there that kind of suggested you should do the quest? So you can kind of see where they've had to cut corners to be able to get the game out in the budget that they had.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I have a question there. Now, would it be fair to say that sometimes it might not be a matter of budget, but of time and resources? Because that you can have all the money in the world, but if you're still only a team of 5 people working, 9 to 5 for 2 years or whatever, you may not physically be able to do everything that you would need to do to replicate the feel of a high budget game put out by a studio, like a bigger studio.
Absolutely. So there's a concept that you should look up at home called the Iron Triangle, which I'll explain in a bit. Go ahead, Christian.
Because Indivisible got 3 million in funding, 3 million converted to Australian, and I don't know too much about budgets, but compared to some other smaller Kickstarter games I've seen, that sounds like a decent chunk of change.
Yeah. So the whole idea of the Iron Triangle thing is basically what you just mentioned, right? So the Iron Triangle is you have 3 points. You've got scope, time, and budget. And basically in the center of all that, you have quality. And so you can extend out one side and say, hey, we're going to increase scope and that'll give us more quality. But then you've also got to increase time and budget to fit that, right? Because you can't just extend in one direction and be like, we're going to have a massive scope game, but not enough time to develop it, right? It works all in all directions. And so, you're exactly right, because they could go and get a shit ton of money. And there's some pretty good examples out there where a game was kickstarted quite a long time ago and has gotten multiple millions of dollars and is still in development and has no set release date because they just keep on adding features because they keep on getting more money. Yeah.
Like Stellaris.
No, not Stellaris. It was another space game though.
Don't you dare.
What's the game I'm thinking of? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But
there is a space game.
Yeah. But so there's that problem. But in this case, I would wager that so when you get to small indies, for an indie, a lot of the time isn't an issue. They will happily work on it. Yeah, Starter Citizen, that's the one.
Yeah.
Time isn't an issue. It's very rare you're going to be most indies will just be we'll just work on it until it's done. Some of them might be we have to get it out by this date, and there might be some limitation on that or whatever. But a lot of the time they won't really care about time. And scope, if they go in there, a lot of the time to get actually kickstarted at all, you need to go in with a larger scope than what you're asking the money for to get people to put money into it in the first place. And that kind of leads to this whole problem anyway. But yeah, like the question I was actually going to ask, like, we're seeing a lot more tabletop games backed on Kickstarter and the like these days than we are digital games. And there's been so many like high profile failures of digital games. Do either of you think there is actually a future for digital games in crowdfunding?
That's a good question. And I don't know. To talk around the question, I guess, before I develop my own real answer to it, I feel like with Kickstarter, there was only a narrow window of time where it felt like it was doing what it set out to do as a concept, and then I feel like it was kind of like a race to the top, where in the end there were too few games getting too much money in Kickstarter, and then the other thing that happened was like established like publishers started paying attention and would either secretly or in the fine print also be funding a game and just use Kickstarter as like supplement, or even just use Kickstarter as like marketing. Like a high profile example I can think of was like Shenmue 3, where Sony was putting in money for that, but then also did a Kickstarter. And I believe that might still be the most successful games Kickstarter on record. But I feel like it kind of got co-opted by other interests beyond, we're a small group of people who have this little thing that we need a kickstart for, and then we can, do it under our own power once we've just got this fuel that we need.
Yeah.
I feel like it grew into something beyond what it was capable of really doing well
and supporting. Yeah.
So I guess to answer that, then I don't really think there is. I think that maybe there'll be a new iteration of crowdfunding. There'll be a new style off Kickstarter that can maybe support that sort of thing. Like the Patreon model, I think is maybe where we might be headed, where people, you almost like subscribe to something,
to a developer.
I guess that, I don't know, that might be weird too, but I don't know. I don't think there's much left for Kickstarter with digital games though.
Yeah, because even with like when you have those big name developers on there, like games like Mighty Number 9 has burned bridges for a lot of game devs.
Definitely.
Because it's like, well, they already had this big name developer and it still turned out really, really bad. Like, why should we trust anybody?
Is anyone calling it Mighty Number 2? Because that's the perfect,
like a shit.
Yeah, like a giant.
That's brilliant.
I love it. That's great.
There is a tendency, I think, sometimes too, like as much as negative as I have been about Kickstarter, there have been some really good games that have come out. I think a lot of the time people don't even know that some games are Kickstarted. Like Hollow Knight was, a awesome game, and that was a really successful Kickstarter. And there's a laundry list of them, like Shovel Knight. So many really good Kickstarter games,
mostly night games. If we're
mostly night games, but you're right, Matt. It's these big, high-profile ones that sour it for people.
Yeah, we still have Fig. Like Fig is still a thing. It's
that's like where you get like a return on the investment somehow.
Only if you're in the United States, and you have to actually choose to have your money be part of an investment.
Right.
But like it's still a thing. Like Australian game Chorus just recently moved from Kickstarter to Fig instead for its crowdfunding campaign. So Psychonauts 2 was funded through Fig. It's basically the Double Fine Studios, like they basically did their own funding platform specifically for games, essentially.
Okay.
And yeah, like it has the whole purpose of it was based like, hey, we're doing the Kickstarter thing, but we're also doing investment. I don't know how the investment side of it's actually gone, since I think Psychonauts 2 is basically the big experiment for that. When it actually releases, we'll see what actually starts happening with the investment side. But your investment would be part of a very, very large number of investments, so I couldn't see like a massive return on that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, going back to what your original sentiment was of like me saying that games feel kickstarted. In my mind, it mainly stands out to me with these kind of Metroidvania style platformers. And like the three that come to mind are now Indivisible, Shantae Half Genie Hero, which was the last Shantae game, and Owlboy. And they're all very similar in that they're all sort of trying to be like a Metroidvania, and they all end up just feeling sort of undercooked.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the main vibe of when it comes to sort of these Kickstarter games. The ones, I mean, but Christian makes a really good point. Is like Hollow Knight was amazing, and I didn't even realize that was crowdfunded. So, you know, I guess it's only the ones that feel crowdfunded. The ones
Darkest
that,
Dungeon, another one.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, and that doesn't feel crowdfunded. So,
Yeah.
I guess it's just in my limited experience. But
Owlboy's an interesting one because that was in development for years, and it feels like it suffered from the same issue like what Duke Nukem Forever kind of suffered from, where it was in development for too long, right? Cancer. Yeah, no, like there's stories about Duke Nukem Forever and the fact that the reason it was so crap was because they would try something and it wasn't perfect, so they toss it out and start over.
Well, now that you mention it, Owlboy was full of abortion jokes, so that makes a lot of sense.
Oh God!
Yeah,
yeah. Let's not get into Duke Nukem Forever.
That's not
terrible. Yeah. All right. Well, who wants to throw? I think our little campfire's starting to crackle a bit, and you know the embers are starting to get a bit low.
Tell us a story, Christian.
You want to throw a bit of a log on that fire for us?
I'm going to throw a log on the fire.
Go on.
And this question is for everybody, but in particular, I'm interested in hearing Matt's thoughts. And it's
fine.
No, for a reason, right?
I'm kidding.
Sometimes I think I love learning about the games industry and reading about the games industry. I know and like the people and the processes and everything behind it. But sometimes I yearn for a kind of ignorance about games. And I look back to a time when I just would buy a game off the shelf that I'd maybe seen in a Nintendo Power magazine or something. And I didn't really, it was a simpler time, and games was just this like pastime, but it wasn't as kind of involved as it is now. And do you guys ever would you think you'd be happy if you didn't know anything about the industry? And like Matt, if you did something else other than being, you know, in the industry as a developer, and you just played games as a hobby, do you think that do you ever yearn for that? Is that something you think would make you happy?
So I know now why you weren't directing this question at me. So much.
the way you phrased it at first, like you were like, you know, I want to, you know, I yearn for this time when I didn't know that much, but you were directing the question at me, so it's like you want to hear me not know that much.
No, like because you're deeper into the industry is what I mean. So the idea of you just, you know, having games as a little side hobby.
Yeah.
That you.
So have either of you seen the whole thing going around at the moment with all these old movie directors being all like, "Fuck, I hate Marvel movies." Like,
Scorsese and other guy.
Yeah, so game dev is basically the same thing, in my opinion. Like, a lot of it is, you can only see behind the curtain for so long before a lot of the magic kind of goes away. Because then you're not looking at games as this thing like, oh man, I have a really good time playing this. You're looking at it critically like, how the fuck did they do that? Right? And like, you try to break it down and understand the process behind it. And in a lot of ways, and this isn't a jab at any sort of like games journalists that might be listening, but I feel like games journalism is very different from film journalism, where a lot of games journalists don't really try to understand the process, whereas film, you know, they try to understand the process and why things are framed certain ways and that sort of thing. And with games as devs, like we are in that position where we try to understand why certain things were done, right? Like a good example being like Untitled Goose Game. Why the fuck was that successful? I want to understand that because it's such a simple game and it's amazing and I love it, but why? Like, why is Goose Game? Why is Goose Game? but like, I hate the fact that I get caught up in that. And I would love nothing more.
Just want to enjoy it.
I would love to just be able to enjoy it without having to think about that stuff, but I'm always having to think about that stuff. So absolutely, like if I could go back in time, like my future self would be telling past Matt to not fucking get into game devs. Don't do it.
I definitely feel that too to a degree, and like with me as well. Like there's a lot of discourse, like finger quotes, around games and like problematic elements of games and problematic elements of gamers with a capital G and like that sort of stuff. And like I have opinions on all those topics, and I think that it's important that these things are talked about. But sometimes I wish that I didn't even know that discussion existed. Yeah. I wish that like I just wasn't in my sphere of awareness, and I was just happily playing games.
Yeah. Like for me, like the whole reason I got into game dev, like I make this sound like I would eject as soon as possible if I could. I actually enjoy what I do. But seeing behind the curtain kind of sucks sometimes. And my original justification for getting into game dev was that I really enjoyed making things that other people enjoyed and could play with and interact with. And like, it was this awesome thing. I remember when I was a kid, there was this TV show called The Mall. And I basically got a whole bunch of my friends together this one time, and we had this sleepover, and I basically had designed for them for the weekend this game of The Mall, where I basically gave them all out cards and said, one of you is going to be the mole. And the plot twist was none of them were the mole. And it was just meant to be a good opportunity for us to all have a whole bunch of mini games and have fun and everything like that. And it was a great time.
Mole.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought you were saying the mall, like
No.
MALL.
MOLE. The Mole.
I remember that show. Yeah.
So yeah, like that was that, and like, you know, being a massive Lego collector and just enjoying building things, I think kind of lured me into games.
Of course, being a massive mole.
Yes, that is me. I'm a massive mole.
You're a mole man.
I'm a mole man. But yeah, like I enjoyed like making things that other people enjoyed. But then the moment you start getting into that discourse, it's like, man, do I really want to make these things for these fucking people?
Yeah.
You should tell your students that.
Yeah. Oh, I tell them every day.
Be prepared to give up.
Yep, pretty much. Like a lot of the time, it feels like the moment you get too stuck into that discourse is the moment you start going, "Why the hell am I here?" So I try not to pay too much attention to it.
What did we learn, kids? Never try.
Never try. Do you have any further thoughts on that, Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you went to Matt first because I am the person that you're talking about. I am patient zero who knows very little about what's going on in the gaming industry world. I mean, since I joined Twitter, I've become a little bit more aware. But yeah, I rarely have knowledge of what's going on, and whatever knowledge I do gain is either through you guys, or you know, whenever I take it upon myself to investigate because something catches my attention.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, a good example is Untitled Goose Game. I have no idea even what the game is about, you know, and I do the same kind of thing that I know that you do, Christian, when it comes to a movie that you know that you're going to see anyway. You don't watch any of the trailers because you already know that you're going to go see it. Yeah. It's kind of the same with video games for me, where if I know that I'm going to play a game, then I don't read about it. I don't watch videos about it. I don't even Google it if I can help it, because I just want to experience it all as, you know, as a consumer. I don't want to think about it in terms of how it was developed or how it's going or anything like that. So yeah, I tend to enjoy consuming my content that way. And it's not just video games. I tend to enjoy all my content that way. So yeah, that's what I tend to do.
Yeah.
I actually, I wanted to, I'll be greedy and I'll throw another log on the fire already.
Go for it, yeah.
Because I wanted to piggyback off something you said, Matt. You talked about creating stuff that people enjoy. And I wanted to talk about games where you create content and share it with other players. Things like Little Big Planet or Mario Maker or the upcoming Dreams. And I wanted to say something perhaps controversial, which is I think that entire concept so far has been shit. I don't think I've ever enjoyed playing or creating content like that for people. And I think maybe that says something about me, but have you guys genuinely played a game where it's all about where you've enjoyed creating content for other people?
No.
Yeah.
No. Because I mean, I think no. Because fuck them. That's why. Like I don't.
Yeah. See, Adrian's one step ahead. Like he's where I wish I was.
But like,
I am an evolved being, Matt.
putting being a dev aside and literally creating games within a produced game, Matt. Have you enjoyed creating content and sharing with other players before?
Fuck no.
Yes.
So I think I had actually said this when Luke and I went and played Dreams at PAX last year. And I noped out of that game. Like, I'm like, it's incredible what they've done, but it's a freaking game engine on a PS4. I don't want to deal with that crap. And I think that, like, you have to be already, like, the thing about those games is that you have to already have a certain level of creativity to really engage with them. And you're either going to be a kid, you know, using that almost as, like, your paper and crayon, you know, to just kind of play with these things in a digital space, or you're going to be basically a game dev or somebody on the way to being a game dev, making these things for the fun of it. And just for me personally, God no, like I do enough of that in my free time. I'd much rather have something physical if I'm going to play with anything like that. So,
yeah, I feel like I've just it must be like a small slice of people who really get a kick out of doing that.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? It's got a funny name where people make like hellscape Mario levels that are like nigh impossible. It's got like a specific term, and I can't remember what it's called.
All right.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is, but it's like those like people in Mario Maker make those like mega death Mario games where like you have to be pixel perfect with your positioning, and like the kind of platforming you have to do is like superhuman. And people were like, well, you know what I mean. But I mean, I think those are the kinds of people that get a kick out of creating content for other people.
Kaizo,
like super challenging.
Kaizo, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Because I think that was the one famous dude who did a whole bunch of levels.
And it's kind of a representation of them. You know, they're putting something out there into the zeitgeist that is sort of them personified. You know, this is a part of me. So and I kind of get that from some perspective. But yeah, I don't know.
I was just going to say real quick, like, thinking about it now, so I would not want to build anything in Dreams, but Mario Maker? Like, Mario Maker is so simple and it's so easy just to put something together and just have fun with it. Like, it's kind of low effort that I could see myself enjoying that, but not often, right? I'd be much more inclined to play the levels that other people have made and see the kind of creativity. Like, there's a guy on YouTube I watch that's incredibly fascinating, where he goes into all the weird tricks and everything that you can do in Mario Maker. And I find that fascinating from a game development perspective. But I wouldn't want to do it myself because I guess because I already do that. But as a player, I definitely wouldn't find that the fun part. I'd find it more fun to play other people's weird levels.
See, I don't even, I think, enjoy playing user-created content because maybe, like, I like seeing it. Like with Mario Maker, I like watching a video or just seeing a GIF of something really creative, but I don't really have a desire to actually go and play it myself. I just like admiring the creativity. And I feel like it either falls on in one or two camps. It's usually like, if it's really interesting and then I'll just enjoy it by knowing about it, or it's just boring and I feel like it's just bad. This is poor content. It's just not fun. Yeah. Like, most people aren't especially talented at creating Mario levels. Like, I think it takes a certain degree of experience and ingenuity to actually create a fun Mario level. And I just have no real. I'll just play the ones that Nintendo makes because they're guaranteed to be good. So it's
also like Mario Maker suffers from memes, right? Not as in like the images or reaction images, but as in like
no.
Everybody, like somebody would do something really cool, and then everybody else will do that, and all the levels.
The musical levels were a huge one.
Yeah, exactly.
They create these just like auto playing levels where you just stand still, and then it will just like play a song through all the stuff, or like And then I know with Mario Maker 1 there was a big problem with curation where it was hard to sift through all that crap. I think it's better in 2, but still,
It
it's
kind of-
a waste of time.
It reminds me of I can't remember the name of the freaking game, but there was YouTubers that did it all the time. Where it was like that Flash game where like it was super gory and people could do their own custom content. And you could like ride around on bikes and other vehicles and everything like that in these levels. I can't remember the name of it, but it just kind of reminds me of that, where it was like it was fun to go into those games and play the really shit levels every now and then.
Yeah, that's like Happy something
Happy
or
Wheels.
Funny something. Happy Wheels.
Happy Wheels, yeah. That game was fun to mess around with, and I think this is the reason why I haven't bought Mario Maker, because I kind of expect that level of quality, and just like I'm not willing to spend money on Happy Wheels, I think it kind of makes me uninclined to play Mario Maker for that reason.
Yep. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to have a bit of a moan about how shit user created content games are.
It is shit.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's interesting though that mods are so good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed the shit out of some mods.
Because you're building on something that's already good. You're not having to like create something from scratch that is usually always average.
Yeah, that's fair.
The only reflecting, I think the only time I've ever been in a game where I've created something for the purpose of showing other people was maybe Minecraft, where like but that's like an immediate kind of gratification where you're showing it to someone who's there right next to you in the game, not someone who's going to play through it later.
Yeah.
And you may or may not hear back from them whether it was good or not. It's like look at the castle I built. Look at that. And the other person's like, that's pretty shit, Adrian. And then you cry yourself to sleep.
The equivalent for Minecraft would be I wouldn't enjoy going into other people's worlds and seeing the cool things they've built.
Yeah,
that doesn't interest me. Like I like building my own things and I like sharing that with like my friends or people on the server. But I'm not interested in just seeing the random stuff that other people have built. Maybe I'll see a GIF of it or whatever, or a picture if it's particularly interesting on Twitter. But I'm not going to actually go to it in the game.
Adventure maps, like I will watch the shit out of people playing somebody's custom made adventure map. But if I'm playing Minecraft, I want to do the survival thing, not play an adventure map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I might.
Have you got any topics, Adrian,
with my own little log to throw on the fire? And here it is, gentlemen. In true naughty boy nature, this is my question: would you rather be covered in scales or fur?
Oh, that's easy.
Discuss.
This is okay. Sorry, you go, Matt.
Scales.
Scales? Why?
Yeah, because I think scales are fucking cool.
What kind of scales? You get to pick the type of scales.
Oh, I have to pick the type of scales?
We don't have to. You have the option. Do you want to do like fish scales or
no,
snake scales?
Slimy. Like the sort of scales like a blue tongue has.
Oh yeah, okay, yep. I don't know what those are called.
Knobbly scales.
Knobbly?
I don't know.
Nice big thick scales.
Matt wants to be covered in knobs. Like
yes.
That's my takeaway
more
from the segment.
Cutaneous. I'll just make that up on the spot. Cutaneous, or maybe they have more keratin in them.
Look, I'm already experiencing life covered in fur, so I don't need that.
My question was going to be: do we inherit the sort of associated physiological traits that come with, do we become a cold-blooded creature?
No,
example?
don't be stupid.
I mean, cold-blooded is a misnomer.
What a stupid question. No, you just.
I would pick fur.
Fur,
because you can shave it off.
Oh, that's a good point.
And then I can live a normal. I mean, it would be high maintenance.
Coward.
Yeah.
But
I embrace my scales.
Yeah, that's circumventing. Would you rather? Let's say that you can't shave it off.
Okay, so it's like Superman's hair.
Because otherwise, I could just pick my scales off and I'd be fine.
I still pick fur because scales are, I don't want to say disgusting, but like
icky.
Ickier. Like I don't want to shed. I hate, like I'm imagining like human beings leaving like these husks of shed skin
but you'd be shedding hair everywhere instead.
That's true.
Like, huge amounts of hair,
but
it'd be in your food.
Do you shave? Because not all furry animals molt a lot.
No, I suppose. But you'd have a high proportion of hair in your food.
You're the wizard here. You're the
I'm the skin
weird
wizard.
genie. You're the skin wizard.
Okay. Skin wizard says that you shed the same amount as a dog would shed.
It
Oh, wait,
sounds like what you're
shit.
doing is you're just moving the goalpost so that whenever I pick fur, you make it worse for me.
No, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and like propose conundrums to you to get you to justify your decisions. That's all.
Okay, what I'm really trying to say is
I'm gonna do it to Matt too, because
what's
Matt's not
with
getting
the
off the ball.
anti-feather bias in this podcast?
Yeah, okay.
Anti-feather.
Yeah, because if I had to
Yeah,
choose,
would you-
if I
I'm
had to choose
disgusted
between,
by your anti-feather agenda.
I would go
Well, would you
feathers.
rather be covered in feathers then? Would you
Feathers.
rather
Yes.
Yeah.
Feathers.
Both
Give me
of you
feathers.
You can't
Yes.
fly just because you have feathers.
I don't care. I'm a featherhead.
Yeah.
You're a featherhead.
I got feathers now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I would go scales in the end.
Of course you would.
What does that mean?
I mean, you own a snake.
Oh, that's true.
Also, Christian's seen your furry character.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you trying to discover our fetishes here? Is that what you're doing?
I'm just going to submit these ideas to a concept artist and get back to you with your personas. That's all. Yeah. Although I think Matt already has one, doesn't
I
he?
do,
Oh, you-
actually.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So,
I want
it's
a- I want a
feathered.
bird
There you
sonar.
go.
It's feathered,
You want a
yeah.
bird sonar?
I
Oh, is it? You have a feather?
Yeah, my
a feather sonar.
my partner, she actually had drawn me up because she thought that I had a really infectious laugh, and I introduced her to kookaburras, and she was basically like, "Oh, that's so on the money." So she drew me up as a kookaburra. Yeah,
Oh, that's
and
nice.
it's stuck.
Oh,
It was
that's
really,
good.
it's really fucking awesome.
I'm gonna feed you meat from my backyard porch, and then over time, you'll become domesticated and eventually become part of the family.
Good luck.
Until one day you don't return, and we're all sad for a couple of days, but then we get over it. That's the story. That's how it
I
goes.
think that's life.
Yeah.
Being sad for a couple of days and then you get over it. Like that.
And getting-
you lose your job, sad for a couple of days, get over it.
And
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
pet dies, sad for a couple of days, get over it.
being
Yeah,
eaten
that's-
by a
that's life.
cat because I was too fat from sausages because Adrian overfed.
All right. I think that nicely puts a little bow on our naughty boy campfire segment. I'm just glad Luke wasn't here, to be honest, because he'd just be farting in the campfire every time we wanted to say something or making horrible puns. Guys, how amazing is
Oh.
it? Listeners, aren't you glad right now? Sitting, Nick, aren't you so stoked? Aren't you totally stoked that not a single pun has been made this episode? Not one pun.
I think we've been pun free, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no puns. Just fantastic discussion with good friends around
Luke
a
wasn't
warm
here to
campfire.
punish us.
That's
Oh,
right, exactly.
God.
Oh no,
Christian!
you ruined it!
Christian!
Oh, you ruined it!
For fuck's sake. We were so
scrap the
close.
podcast. We're going back and we're recording it all again. God damn it. We almost made it, listeners. We were almost there. Nick, we almost did it. Oh, well, I think that wraps up our episode for the evening. So,
Where can people find us?
yeah, people can find us on, if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can get us on email at mail@partyloaded.com. You can find us on Facebook. Just search for Party Loaded. Twitter @Party Loaded Show. YouTube, youtube.com/tunnelendgame. And on Twitch at twitch.tv/partyloaded. Send us some tweets at our contacts and let everyone know that Adrian should be running the show instead of Luke.
Yeah.
Let's just let's get that poll going.
Gamers rise up.
Send us images
mean-
of your furry OC.
Yeah. I admit. And let us know. Would you rather be covered in scales or fur?
Well, these are the
This is
important
these are the
questions.
The important question. That's right. Exactly. It's exactly what we need to know. Alrighty. What have you guys got planned for the coming week? Anything interesting?
I actually have recently picked up Ring Fit Adventure.
Oh.
So I'm gonna be sweating it out and trying to get ring fit.
I've
Get your
heard
ring fit,
super
yeah.
good things about it.
Yeah, interesting. I've
So
seen.
I'll
some
update
very
next
positive.
week.
Cool. I look forward to that. Matt, what about you? Anything interesting planned?
Outer Worlds releases in 2 days. Not that I'm counting.
Of course.
Ah.
Outer Worlds is a perfect example of what I was saying before about a game that I know nothing about but will probably play.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. I myself have nothing planned. I'm just going to sit alone in a dark room in the nude until next week when we
You'll be sad
record
for a couple
again.
of days, but you'll get over it.
Like a mushroom.
Exactly. All right, listeners, don't be sad. Don't get over it. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.